A large group of First Nations representatives have called for an Indigenous voice to Parliament that's enshrined in the Constitution. And soon the federal government will be asking Australians to vote in a referendum on whether we agree. But what is Australia's Constitution? And what does enshrining something in it actually mean? Let me explain. So, at the turn of the 20th century, when British colonists decided they wanted to turn all the states into one unified country,
at last, the nation was united.
They wrote this big foundational document that laid out all the details of how the government would be structured. Like how many houses of parliament there should be, or what qualifications someone needs to be elected, and exactly what the federal government does or doesn't have power over. It's the one document to rule them all. It overrides all the other laws in Australia and no parliament can change it. In fact, it's written into the Constitution that the only ones who can change it are the Australian people, by voting directly for or against the changes in a referendum. This means staging a full-scale election day-style voting shebang just for one yes or no question about one policy. It's a lot of effort, but that's kind of the point. And more often than not, it is unsuccessful. Only 8 of the 44 referendums held have ever passed. And of those 8, they all had bipartisan support, so both sides of politics were arguing yes. The idea of the voice is to have a group of Indigenous representatives who would be able to advise the Parliament or government on issues concerning First Nations peoples. But if this group of representatives won't have the ability to pass or make laws, why go to all this bother of trying to put it in the Constitution anyway? Well, there are a few reasons. First, it's about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples receiving a form of constitutional recognition. Australia's Constitution doesn't mention its First Peoples at all, which is only a slight improvement from the time it did mention them, specifically to exclude them. A reference which was actually removed in an overwhelmingly successful referendum in 1967. The effect of which was to first remove the impediments to counting First Nations peoples in the census, but also gave the federal government the power to make special laws in respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And that's why proponents of the voice to Parliament say that if First Nations peoples are the only specific class of Australian that seem to have laws made about them in this way, they should have a chance to get a say in those laws. The second reason is that once something's in the Constitution, it's a real hassle to get it back out again because you need another referendum. See, something like the voice would theoretically be established with just regular legislation. But, oh wait, we tried to do that in 1989 with the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Commission, but the Howard government abolished it in 2005, claiming the experiment in elected representation for Indigenous people has been a failure. That's why the Indigenous leaders who created the Uluru Statement from the Heart stipulated a voice needed constitutional entrenchment. That would mean that, parliaments can still pass legislation, adapting and establishing the details of how the voice will work, but the existence of the voice itself wouldn't be up for debate. It would be enshrined. Soon, you'll be asked to fill out a piece of paper which reads, "A proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise the First Peoples of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration?" Which means it's probably time to start carefully weighing up both sides and deciding if you're going to vote yes or no. And if you want to know more about how the voice and the referendum vote counting works, you can check out our other videos here and here.